Delete Everything with Patrick Wall and Riley Bowen present Boring Man, Crazy Life, a study in 3 parts. Preface. When it first fell upon me to research this week's topic, it seemed very simple. Find a boring person, a scientist or businessman, that went on some unexpected adventure and talk about it. But in my research, I found it surprisingly difficult to find someone boring that went on adventures. In fact, the very nature of adventure cancels out what one might call a boring person and replaces them with an experienced person, a person with a story that makes them inherently interesting. It made me question the nature of the topic. Perhaps I should have simply changed the title to Crazy Lives or Interesting People, but I stubbornly persisted. I optioned about a dozen characters from history and eventually settled on 3. Clinical psychologist and psychonaut Timothy Leary, American computer programmer John McAfee, and writer, director, actor Werner Herzog. 3 boring men, supposedly, in an investigation to discuss what exactly defines boring, or crazy, or narcissistic, self-destructive, manipulative, even insane. Introduction.
Yay! You did it. That's a cool one. I like that one.
We're not done. We're not
done with it. I know we're not done with it. Yeah, I know. I like the idea for this week.
Hey everybody.
That was weird.
Yeah, I did it on purpose. This is a Riley episode.
It is a Riley episode. But thanks again for being here on Delete Everything Podcast. I am Patrick Wall, and here next to me, driving the getaway car to the nearest international airport, is my co-host,
Riley Bowen.
We are happy to have everyone here while we talk about boring men who most people know of at least something, about them. But like most people know of these guys and the crazy lives that some of these dudes led. This will definitely have a second part, I think, at some point, because we had some dudes that we had to omit. So
There's so many fucking weird fucks ever in history. It's
really
crazy.
So before we get started, I just want to remind everyone to please get on Apple Podcasts, get on Spotify, Audible, whatever. Give us 5 stars. That is the way we get some visibility and make it onto more people's suggested podcasts. It also makes us more enticing to advertisers. Hopefully we make a few bucks at some point. So I'm going to keep saying it because we would love to see you love us. So if you do love us, please tap those 3 little dots on the screen and give us 5 stars and leave us a review. You can tell us anything you want. We are mostly just trying to get a lot of 5-star ratings. Riley, is there anything that you want people to say in the review?
If
We don't have to.
Tell
us what your favorite color is.
No.
No? Okay.
That's dumb. I don't know.
Tell us what your favorite breed of dog is.
Weird.
I don't know that breed.
I want people to say... no, I got nothing. Fuck.
Okay, well, anyway, that's my weekly rant. And, welcome back to Delete Everything Podcast, where Riley and I explore the obscure and unknown histories that most of us have deleted from our brains. I'm making this one quick, so don't expect a lot today, you guys. I'm kind of not feeling great.
Yeah, it's actually...
If you can't hear it in my voice.
It's a good thing that I'm kind of leading this one, because if you've heard any of the previous episodes that I do, I think I got 3 now.
Something like that.
This is like my 3rd or 4th.
Yeah.
Like pseudoscience or
this
freaks.
is your 4th, I think.
Yeah, the freaks in particular. Like, I give you the facts and figures a little bit. I'll give you the dates,
Yeah.
but like it's more conversational because
Right.
I'm obsessed with insight into context. Like, you can talk about these characters that we're going to talk about, like John McAfee, Timothy Leary,
Crazy person.
and Werner Herzog. You can talk about all of these guys in different contexts, and they're in some ways enshrined, and in other ways vilified. Some people think they're geniuses. Some people think they're fucking insane. But I want to take a little look into the context of these people.
Yeah.
Which is a little less facts and figures and a little more speculation.
Right. So either way, if you want to send us a message, we would love to hear from you.
Oh, I want you to say "come." That's what I want when you leave a review.
I
Say
doubt-
"peeny vagini" or "come." Those are
You
my
probably get away
catchphrases.
with Peeny Vagini. I think come they would probably not.
You can spell it with "COME"
Yeah, that you could get away for that. But
or like "CU."
or come up with a new cool spelling.
"CU"
Come up with a
CUM
new cool
with an
spelling for
umlaut. Coom.
Cool. Yeah, if you want to send us a message, you can hit us up, deleteeverythingpodcast@gmail.com. Say hello. If you want to give us a show suggestion, that would be cool. If you have something that you think that we might not do. Or if you want to say, hi, I'm one of your weird number of inexplicable New York listeners, and this is how I found you. This is my second week in a row calling out of state.
Yeah.
Last week was Louisiana. This week, New York. Come out, guys. Tell us where you've been hiding and tell us how you found us. Yeah, send us a message. We also have social media and other ways of supporting us that we will plug at the end of the show. So let's get into some boring dudes, huh? Let's talk about boring dudes.
Timothy Leary.
I don't know why whenever I hear Timothy Leary's name, I think of like 10 other people.
Yeah, like who?
Timothy McVeigh, I think his face, it's not like specific faces that I Dennis Leary.
Right.
Like I see different faces.
I always think of like Abby Hoffman in my head, like
Okay.
just because like when I was growing up, you hear about fucking Timothy Leary, this LSD psilocybin guru, that turned on
Entrepreneur.
turned on the whole country. And I figure, be some fucking degenerate hippie with a beard and hair and a flower headband. That's the image that was always like sold to me.
Yeah.
You
You know who we could do in the same vein is what was the guy that was arrested in like the late 90s, early 2000s? The guy that was basically supplying the entire country with LSD at that point. His last name is Picard. I remember that.
Oh, that was Jean-Luc Picard.
It wasn't Jean-Luc Picard. It wasn't his real name. Was it?
I don't know. That'd be cool if it was, though.
It wasn't Jean-Luc
Because
Picard.
in that case, what that would be? That would be a time travel episode. Number one, we have to get to San Francisco
to make LSD.
Make it so.
All right, so tell me about Timothy Leary, man.
Okay, so Timothy Francis Leary was born in 1920, October 22nd. He was an American psychologist and author known for his advocacy of psychedelic drugs.
Okay.
Like, this is a pretty clear-cut American boy. He grew up just with honors in high school. He went to several different colleges. He went to West Point, right?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. He got kicked out of West Point for drinking.
Okay.
Yeah, he was.
Well, West Point is a high school, right?
Huh?
West Point is a military high school.
West Point is a college.
Is it college?
Yeah.
Oh, West Point is the college.
West
The
Point's a college.
No, the Citadel is the college.
The Citadel.
different college?
That's where the Meisters gain their chains. Each link representing a different level of knowledge that they've gained.
There's also a college.
I don't know. I have no idea. But he was kicked out of West Point for drinking.
Okay.
But he was expelled from Alabama University after he was found in like a girl's dorm.
Ooh, hey there.
He's a little bit of a party man, kind of your average sort of college bro, but he's an intellectual as well. He got into psychology and excelled at it. So he got into clinical psychology as an overall study, and eventually made his way up to Harvard in the doctorate program for clinical psychology.
Impressive.
So at the time he was going for his doctorate, right, he was married. He's got 2 kids.
Okay.
But he was kind of known to be a ne'er-do-well. He was swinging a little bit. His wife was also swinging a little bit. They were going out and...
Like legit swinging?
Yeah, like swinging.
Nice.
Upside down pineapples and the whole deal.
Fuck yeah, good for them.
So one of the documentaries that I watched to learn about all this stuff is actually I'm really glad that I watched this one instead of the hippy-dippy bullshit ones that are all over the internet.
Yeah.
It was a BBC documentary from the 90s. And the people that are interviewed in this documentary are not fucking Timothy Leary fans. They think he's a dipshit. They think he's a total dick. Like they interview people he worked with, different professors, people that like go against him in debates and things like that, and they just be like,
was down.
They'd be like, no, this guy was a fucking moron.
Really?
Yeah, his previous assistant from Harvard apparently said that his wife confided in her that she had never turned a man down.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's Not what you want to hear.
Right, and supposition from another one was that Timothy Leary allowed like her to just kind of bip around whatever to cover his own affairs because he was just fucking whoever was on campus.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
All right.
So that just kind of sets the framework. This is all pretty basic American Timothy Leary. This is a guy wears a suit and tie. Fucking, he's going for his doctorate in clinical psychology. Intellectual, bit of a ne'er-do-well, background in partying, but he wasn't like hitting the sauce too hard or fucking bombing out on drugs. He
Yet.
And I'm talking until he was 40 years old.
Holy shit.
Right? So it was 1960.
That's not when you're supposed to start doing LSD.
Well, in 1960, on his 40th birthday, his wife commits suicide.
Whoa.
Yeah, she fucking takes the gas pipe in the car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the garage.
That's a clean way of doing
He
it.
wakes up on his 40th birthday to a note on his bed that was his wife saying, "Hey, I'm fucking killing myself." Goes downstairs.
All the dicks. I've done them all. There's none left. I don't want to live. I don't want to live the rest of my life with no new dicks.
Yeah, and there isn't like a
I get
whole
it.
bunch of. There's not a lot of documentation on why she committed suicide, but there very seldom is. You know?
That's actually, yeah, that's a good point. I have personal friends that I know that have,
Yeah, I've got close family members
that,
fucking
and it
didn't
takes-
even leave a note.
yeah. Well, and I mean, even if they do leave a note, even if there is some insight, usually that's like very close family. Like most people keep that. Like I have friends who it took years before I really found out like what was going on.
Right,
Usually that's once the like close family is done grieving and ready to talk about it and stuff. So that's not.
So
It's
there's
completely,
not a whole lot of insight into why exactly Timothy Leary's first wife committed suicide. But what we do know is that he, at 40 years old, left Harvard. He went on a trip to Europe with his.
So he
with
was
his two
teaching at
kids.
Harvard.
By the time he was 40, yes, he was working.
okay.
He was working in the clinical psychology department.
Okay.
He took a hiatus. He took his kids. He went to Europe.
Okay. And
Right.
what year is this?
This is going to be 1960.
60. Okay.
Right. So in 1960, he goes to Europe, and he's trying to make it as an author or kind of do some grant work or things like that. And it's just not working out. He's fucking depressed. Things aren't fucking very cool. Until a friend of his comes out, and he's like, "Hey, man, you know something that we've been missing in the research on clinical psychology throughout all of our research and all of our schooling is psilocybin mushrooms."
Sure.
Which, I mean, like, at the time, you got to figure, in America at the time, hallucinogens almost all across the board were totally legal because nobody thought of them as recreational, really.
Sure.
The only people who were using them were fucking shamans or people taking ayahuasca or peyote for religious or spiritual reasons. Nothing that you would really consider as, like, a dangerous drug in your pocket.
Right.
Right? So he goes to Mexico, and he experiments with psilocybin mushrooms. And all of a sudden, he's like, "Oh, these are the greatest fucking things I've ever tried in my
they're
whole
not bad.
goddamn life."
They're not bad.
Right? So I'm a fan. I'm a fan of hallucinogens.
Yeah.
I always have.
Sometimes, not all the time.
Not all the time.
I don't get people who can do it all the time, and I know that there are people who are going to be like, "Well, I microdose, a little bit every day." And that's a different
microdosing
thing.
a little bit. That's different. That's more of like
Even every day. That's Here's the thing: anything that you do every day is now a slippery slope because more often than not, this it's like anything else. The same amounts don't give you the same there's effects.
There's a very fine line. I
Over
think
time
with
you have to keep
hallucinogens,
going more,
especially psilocybin.
more.
Especially psilocybin because it alters your perception in a way that you aren't going to realize that your perception is changed drastically until one day you're like, "Oh fuck!" All through high school, I was covered in paint and fucking had bandanas on my elbows and shit. Like that didn't make any sense. And I see pictures of myself now. I'm like, "Oh, I was doing so many mushrooms." I was like doing art and shit. It was all garbage. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Yeah, of course. It completely alters
Yeah, it just alters your
brain,
perception.
your brain chemistry.
Which, as a tool for like psychological research, that's really relevant and important. And so
That's true.
he brought that back to Harvard,
okay.
and he took up his position in the clinical psychology department, and he began doing studies on psilocybin research. Right?
Okay.
I have a cool note on here that just says "sofa in the office," and I forget what that was exactly.
I'm guessing he had a sofa in his office.
I think it was more of like Like somebody started working in the psychology department that was very charming, and all of a sudden Timothy Leary had had a sofa installed in his office.
Oh, like a casting couch?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Come on, Tim. Because I know that all this ended up being like he was an advocate for, using LSD and psilocybin for, like therapeutic use in psychiatry.
Yeah, like all across the board. What we're going to get into is the way we were just talking about how like you can't just fucking trip all the time.
Right.
That's where Timothy Leary goes. Like he starts out here as a popular...
But it's funny because now in 2024, that is like a very popular thing.
Yeah.
In small doses.
It's also different.
Mostly psilocybin.
Pretty different.
Not
now.
LSD so much, but...
Not LSD.
Yeah.
You can't... I mean, even small doses of LSD is like, that's still bad news bears, man.
Yeah, I agreed.
I'm an advocate. Yeah. Like, I really think that hallucinogens can open your perception for things, but it's
a slippery slope.
What we'll see here is Richard Nixon called Timothy Leary the most dangerous man in America.
Well, Richard Nixon.
Richard Nixon.
Richard Nixon was kind of a fucking twat.
Yeah, he was. Exactly. Which is why my entire fucking life, I think like, this guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
He's the human equivalent of soggy cereal.
But just hear me out. We haven't got to do this guy's boring as shit. We're getting through the boring. So far, he's been swinging, and his wife died. That's all.
That's not super boring. I mean,
it's pretty fucking boring because he was 40. Up till then, he had been in the. He'd gotten kicked out of West Point, and he was a clinical psychologist.
All right. I mean, yeah.
It's like that's pretty fucking boring.
Well, every person's got stories, I guess. So yeah,
exactly.
In the grand scheme of people,
he's wearing tweed suits and shit. He's got a mustache, whatever.
Cool.
He's a fucking professor. He's a college professor.
Yeah.
He's not
super interesting.
Not a super interesting fucking
I see
guy.
where you're going with this.
Right, exactly. So at 40, he comes back with fucking psilocybin from Mexico, and he's like, we need to do this. Which is pretty fascinating, really, because like it is an area of study that's absolutely worthwhile in a lot of respects because as we know, at least, hallucinogens can give you access to parts of your own emotions that you are not willing to access.
That's true.
You could fucking have like deep-seated trauma from your childhood that you never want to address, and then you fucking eat a couple of mushrooms or you take some acid, and that's all you can think about all night. You might have a breakthrough. You might just cry for a few days. Like fucking, it just makes things accessible. It makes you more malleable.
Right.
Which is the danger here, because as a clinical psychologist, he's like, this is the breakthrough we need to get to everyone's emotions, which is not good. You can't.
Yeah, I don't think it's that simple.
It is not that simple because he had no fucking structure for treatment whatsoever. He was just like, eat this shit and then let's talk.
Well, that's just bad science, man.
Yeah, it's just fucking bad science. That's exactly this. Like, because he's a fucking well-respected collegiate professor, but he also is apparently a stupid asshole.
Oh, God.
It blew my fucking mind. It blew my mind when I was watching this documentary and doing my research, and I'm like, hold on a second.
Shout out the doc, man.
Huh?
Shout out the doc.
It's like BBC, Timothy Leary. Something. It was on YouTube. Okay. It was like, I scanned through a bunch of things. Like I fucking was reading documents and files and all kinds of shit.
I got you.
Podcasts and yada yada, stuff like that. The thing I was most interested in was not, again, the facts and figures of the whole fucking schmageggy here. But like, I really want to get into the core of this because
making up words again, man.
The schmageggy?
Schmageggy's not a dictionary. No, that sounds like a Great Lakes area thing.
It's Yiddish.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think.
It sounds like something that somebody from like Wisconsin says.
Sounds isn't that?
Well, the whole schmageggy going on.
Isn't that from the Music Man? Schmageggy.
I
never saw it.
No.
There are a couple of people who are going to listen to that.
You know the answer to that? I have not ever watched it.
Never seen the Music Man?
No. What Music Man?
You don't like musicals?
No.
No, I don't like fun.
It's not that I don't like fun.
Can we get back to the topic?
It's suddenly you're the... See, here's the flip-flop is that when I'm the host, you are so willing to go down all the highways and byways.
Yeah, you like this? You like the way I'm treating you right now?
And I have to be the one to pull you back onto the trail.
I do love musicals, though. And
really?
And the song is Shapoopy from the Music Man.
Oh,
sung by
know
Buddy
that
Hackett.
I do
Shapoopy. Shapoopy.
Yeah, the girl
Schmageggy's
is the
Yiddish.
girl with something. What's going on with the girl?
The girl's got...
Her name's Shapoopy.
Yeah.
That's a weird name.
Whatever. The guy's name was Buddy. Buddy Hackett.
Not as weird as Shapoopy.
Weird names in that movie.
See, here's
Buddy
the thing
Hackett,
about
Rex Harrison.
Here's the thing
Music
about
Man.
musicals to me is that I like things that I can like sympathize and or empathize with, and I can't sympathize and or empathize with a bunch of people sporadically breaking into choreographed song and dance. It just doesn't. I'm like, this isn't how anything in life ever happens.
You know what might help you?
What?
Psilocybin mushrooms.
I knew you were going to say it.
I just went and saw the Wicked movie that just came out.
Mm-hmm.
It was delightful.
Okay.
The pageantry, the musical numbers,
All right.
delightful.
I'll take your word for it.
So anyway, so he's I've been saying Harvard all this time, right?
You have been saying Harvard. I mean, you've said it at least 4 or 5 times.
Cool. So
What did you mean to say?
Harvard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so at this time, Timothy Leary had released a book called The Interpersonal Diagnosis of Personality. Like, he wasn't just some schlub. Like, people fucking respected him. Even though apparently a lot of people worked. Is it schlub? Did you say that?
Schmagegi and schlub. What is happening? We get the fuck out of the West in the 1800s, and now it's just
Now it's all
free-for-all.
New York in the early 20s, baby.
That schlub's got the whole schmagegi.
Hey, Schmo. So, okay. So, apparently, the interpersonal diagnosis of psychology was worked on by a number of people, and Timothy Leary just took all the fucking credit. That is hearsay,
cool.
though. I'm not saying that definitively. This is just hearsay. But so he's working at Harvard Psych. He's got a lot of approval from the school for his studies on psilocybin, because psilocybin research and usage is legal all across the country,
Sure.
right? So
At the time, yes.
At the time, yes. So they're thinking like, oh wow, this is like a bit of a wonder drug. Like, he's making some interesting breakthroughs.
Right.
He had this
So was cocaine at one point.
yeah, right, yeah.
And heroin.
Just do a little cocaine. You're good
Hey,
to
we
go.
made this non-addictive substitute for morphine. It's called heroin.
Poppies will make them sleep.
Oh no, that one didn't work. We made a new one. It's called fentanyl. It's definitely not addictive.
Ooh, topical. Do I have any friends that fentanyl's killed yet? Yes, I do. For
sure.
So
Yeah, for sure.
So he keeps working. Apparently, the psilocybin study becomes very popular at Harvard, to the point that like other studies aren't getting students to fucking work with them, because the study was pretty literally, hey, take these mushrooms and then tell me what happened.
That sounds like a fun study if you're in college.
Somebody comes back the next day and they're like, I don't know. I fucking looked at a wall for a while, tried to eat ice cream, but I couldn't quite make it. I
Watched
don't
the
know.
most beautiful sunset and I cried.
My favorite.
It was like blue and pink cotton candy. It was amazing.
So I think this is a pretty good excuse to throw little drug stories in here. My favorite.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
My favorite mushroom trip. One of the favorite mushroom trips I've ever been on. I've never done drugs, by the way. This is a character that I'm putting on for the podcast.
Oh,
God. But I ate one really good big mushroom, and I think there were even like people over at my house. My wife was hanging out with people, and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna eat this, and I'm going to bed," because I'm a pretty solitary guy with that sort of thing. I'm not like a fun drug doer.
Okay.
I'm not in it for fun.
I am for a little bit, and then I'm
maybe
the
for
same
a
way.
minute, but I'm gonna close the door here.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna have a panic attack at some point. I don't want to be around people for that. But I go in and I'm like looking for something fun to watch on TV. And I accidentally kind of settle on the movie 1917, the World War One epic. And I was unaware that this movie was shot in such a way that it looks like just one long tracking shot with the camera the whole time.
Oh my God.
I didn't even sit down. I stood for this 2.5 hour movie. I just stood the whole time just watching it like, what the fuck? All right, but I digress.
Fun.
So he's very popular. He comes up with an experiment called the Marsh Chapel experiment.
Okay.
Studying, this is a pretty good, this is a smart guy move. He put people on mushrooms in a church. But he wanted to study. His study was like, it's kind of like,
no, I don't want that at all.
I think it's like tied into, the stoned ape theory. Joe Rogan's a big fan of that shit. It's the idea that like early ancestors of man in the evolutionary period like ate psychoactive plants.
Stands to reason.
And it like changed the perception and led to like tools and fire and shit like that.
Okay.
Yeah. But he was like, if that could be the case, then perhaps religion could be, was like helped along by this sort of thing. And he saw this,
It's a
like,
theory.
he got an interesting result out of this that was like, like 4 out of 5 people would be like, I saw God, and one person would be like, oh, there's no God. which is fun.
So to interject my own experiences here, I don't think I've ever seen God, but I will say I can see how people see that if you all, because I'm such a hardcore like non-believer, having grown up Catholic. I feel like they just beat it out of you real early.
Uh-huh.
But I have seen, I feel like anything in nature, just seems so incredible.
Yeah.
That I can see where if you are, even on the fence about religion, where you'd be like, oh no, that's proof. That sunset is proof, or that, that little flower bud opening up is proof. It's got to be.
Well,
You know what I mean?
not to sound like a square, but that's the exact reason that hallucinogens can be dangerous. Is that you can find this meaning and this perception and this grand
everything.
element and everything. I mean, like, I know that my perception's changed from experimenting with that kind of shit, but like in a way that I find solid. Like I'm not like fucking the earth loves me or shit like that. Like,
I think anybody in the world, I can think of multiple people off the top of my head that could just really stand to have a few solid trips.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then just be better people for
There's
it.
some real fucking squares out there,
Real
man.
dicks.
Well, I mean, like, to this exact point, one of the people that was taking mushrooms with Timothy Leary at Harvard was a guy named Richard Alpert.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Ram Dass?
I don't think so.
Richard Alpert became one of the foremost kind of spiritualist gurus in the nation. Ram Dass, like, he's a real popular.
No, I know Richard Alpert. I know the name. I just don't know why I know the name.
Because he's Ram Dass. Or you're thinking Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass.
No, that's not what I'm thinking.
Another big proponent of hallucinogens.
Okay.
I think you should always just eat some mushrooms and listen to the Tijuana Brass.
Okay.
No, but so yeah, like Ram Dass went to
listen. Speaking of psychedelics, do they put psychedelics in cough medicine? Because I feel real weird right now.
Well, yeah, there's dextromorphan.
I know. I'm kidding.
DXM, one of the more powerful hallucinogenics.
I feel great right now.
So yeah, he was fucking one of his coworkers, Richard Alpert, like started taking mushrooms with him at this study in Harvard. Ends up fucking going to India and studying with fucking like gurus and shit like that. Like, now he's, to this day, still thought of was one of the most like renowned spiritualists. I'm not a big Ram Dass guy, but I don't mind the philosophy so much.
Yeah.
There's a podcast that I like a lot. The fuck is that guy's name? The Duncan Trussell. Duncan Trussell is like a real popular
That's
comedian.
a made-up name.
No, he's a Joe Rogan guy, but he's a really popular comedian and kind of like
Careful,
spiritualist.
there's a lot of Joe Rogan
I
guys.
know there are, but come on, guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, but if I say he's a Joe Rogan guy, you fucking know what I mean, right? No, but this is a guy who like hawks alpha brain and shit on his podcast. But
Okay.
he's also a really funny, interesting spiritualist, and he follows Ram Dass like to the core. It's like the heaviest shit.
Okay.
A lot of people are like that. A lot of people find this meaning in spirituality through this guy who started with Timothy Leary. That's like fucking patient zero of what Timothy Leary's going to do to the country in the next 5 years.
I got you.
Right? So like after the Marsh Church or whatever, after the Marsh Chapel experiment, he starts getting like real heavy into just tripping himself a lot.
As one would.
He's reported to say that if you weren't open to psychedelics, then you shouldn't be in the field of clinical psychology, and pressured like his students to take the shit. He's like, if you don't like this, then you shouldn't be a psychologist. And it was like fucking creeping people out.
I feel like it's one thing to say that like I'm conducting a study, and so consenting adults and everything, like, you do this and I'm going to study you, and then but I feel like you don't make yourself part of your own experiment, right?
This is where the kind of stupid asshole.
That's where some pseudoscience shit slips in real hard.
Yeah, but I mean, of course,
that I do know. Do you know that at some point Timothy Leary had a Playboy interview?
He had many. He was
where he claimed,
widely renowned for just interviewing all the time.
Where he claimed that LSD could cure homosexuality.
Yeah.
That a lesbian woman had come to him and said that I'm not gay no more.
Yeah, great. Great.
You don't get the reference. The video with the guy, I'm not gay no more.
Oh, yeah. I
like
women.
women.
Women. The gayest man you ever saw in your life.
He really is.
God damn.
He's not fooling
He's
anybody.
wearing a bow tie.
Yeah, not fooling anybody.
Anyway, so like he's doing this study. He starts getting kind of popularized by hippie yippie characters. And like Allen Ginsberg shows up at his house.
Oh
one
boy!
day.
All right, now I know.
You guys
where
are
we're at.
familiar with the beat poet Allen Ginsberg. Is a fucking look him up. That's an interesting character. Have you ever heard Howl?
Yeah.
I've seen the greatest minds of my generation. Stark mad.
Yeah,
their
something.
pubic beards and shit. Like fucking, it goes off. That's like a 40-page poem.
Yeah.
But so he gives.
He was
psilocybin.
homies with like Kerouac. And,
Exactly. So
and,
he gives psilocybin to
and what's his name?
Ginsberg. Ginsberg has this fucking revelatory moment. He tries to call the president, can't get through to the president, ends up calling Kerouac instead. So he fucking turns Kerouac on.
Did he have the president's number, or was
No,
he just,
he's just
calling
fucking
random numbers?
crazy
Is the president
guy.
there?
This fucking crazy
Nope.
bearded. He's like naked on the phone, just like, I need to talk to the president.
Hello, is the president there? No.
I've
Click.
cured war. You know?
boop, boop,
Yeah.
Hello, is the president there? No. Click.
Did you ever read the Anarchist Cookbook back in high school?
No, I never did.
I was one of those kids who got busted for like printing it out and like taking it to school and
Oh,
shit.
of course you did.
Yeah, whatever. There's some fun stuff in there.
This
One of
post
the
Columbine. Yes,
was
because that's
post-
when
this
everybody
was-
found out about the anarchist.
yeah, it was
cookbook,
post Columbine. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do that.
nope.
Post Columbine.
Well, I was more interested in like the like the fun tricks and tips for like getting free phone calls and shit.
Skip the whole pipe bomb section.
Yeah, fucking
I
needs
don't
that.
need pipe bombs.
I can smoke bananas. But there's like a story in the Anarchist Cookbook about somebody who accidentally called the president's bunker. And I think that's fun.
Oh wow.
Anyway, so Ginsberg turns Kerouac onto hallucinogens.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking Kerouac and Aldous Huxley and some people that Ginsberg are fucking. So they all start hanging out at Timothy Leary's Harvard like compound, where his like new wife and kids
Was Aldous
are.
Huxley a contemporary of theirs?
Yeah. Well, he was a bit older at that time. Aldous Huxley.
Brave New World, author of Brave
Yeah,
New World.
Aldous Huxley was a really fucking interesting old man. I highly recommend you look up some
Yeah.
some interviews from when he was older.
I don't know much about him.
He had like heterochromia and like some like weird skin shit, and he was just fucking nuts, but like really, really interesting and smart.
Okay.
Yeah, very clever, very interesting character. But so he's tripping out with all these fucking wackadoos, and at the same time you got like people like Ken Kesey, author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, who's running the Merry Pranksters.
Okay.
Northern California. So you got the Harvard boys over on the East Coast. On the West Coast, you got Ken Kesey and his fucking nut jobs, the Merry Pranksters. They're running around. They're just giving people free acid all over the place. So on both coasts, you've got these different gangs of just fucking nutty, tripped out fucks. All this like starts gaining popularity and fame. Leary gets kicked out of Harvard. Right?
Okay.
He gets kicked out of Harvard. He moves on to
Sure.
LSD rather than psilocybin because it's stronger. It's crazier. You see weirder shit. I don't really know where he started. He started dropping the psychology bit after a while. Once he got kicked out of Harvard, he started like having people over for weekend retreats and shit and charging them for like a weekend of tripping out and like talking about feelings and stuff. And if you watch a documentary, he's still wearing like a tie and like rolling his sleeves up to get into the psychology elements of this. But a year later, he's running these like Broadway style shows where he's like wearing a fucking like a dashiki and
my
like banging a
God.
drum and they're crazy lights and he's just trying to like this is what it's like to be on LSD. He's essentially doing Laser Floyd on stage while he's like throwing out some psychological mumbo jumbo. But at a certain point, he just sort of drops the entire fucking psychology element of this and makes it more about rebellion. That's where his
I just love being high.
yeah, tune in, turn on, drop out. That was his big saying.
Oh wow.
Because now at this point, he'd tripped out enough that none of these material things about
Right.
the inner workings of the brain.
We're all just part of a
fucking-
system, man.
Exactly.
You gotta-
Now it's like,
like-
no, you can't be controlled by
Yeah.
these people.
You can't even be an individual,
you're a
man.
free
They got you
spirit, you're
wrapped
free
up.
energy. And like, there are people out there I
Just
respect.
be an individual, man.
There are people I respect immensely that have points of view like that, and I agree with it on a lot of levels. I think that people shouldn't be in this weird fucking box thing that we're in.
Sure.
But this is a Harvard psychologist,
Right.
who's wearing sandals on stage to a light show and going to fucking like going to love-ins with John Lennon and shit.
I think that you can argue that point, like, oh, this sort of machine that society has created that we're all sort of part of, and you can't just be yourself because you got to do this thing. You're expected. These are your expectations. But I get it. It makes sense. Practically, we live in a society, and so
Yeah.
like I have a friend who still bartends full time, and he goes to sleep at like 7:00 in the morning. And if I ever want to do anything with him, like I have to wait until he wakes up at 5 p.m. And I criticize him, and he's like, "Oh, you slept from this time to that time. I slept from this time to this time. It's blah blah blah." And I get it. You can make that argument. Yeah, we both slept for 7 hours, 8 hours, whatever. You slept when all the commerce happens.
Yeah, the daytime is when the stuff is.
Yeah, and we live in a society, so unless the whole society changes,
Brian and I used to have this.
it's not the same.
We used to have this conversation all the time because, like, I'm philosophically, I'm what would be known as an absurdist, but I always like go with nihilist. That's neither here nor there. We'll fucking talk about that one day. But I always used to tell Brian,
If you're a true nihilist, it's nowhere.
I'm what would be called an existential nihilist, which means that I don't have to give a shit about anything. But I can if I want to. But Brian and I always used to have this thing where he'd like get like wrapped up in some idea.
God. Anytime Brian starts getting on like the philosophical shit, I clock.
I
clock out.
I clock right the fuck in.
I see. I clock
That's
out.
put me in, coach.
Yeah, you guys talk about it. I
spent my whole life
I feel like my
studying
eyes glaze.
philosophy shit. I love it.
Listen, I understand it. I like it, but again, anything that stuff all exists in a bubble, and once you go, oh, we're part of a global society, a lot of the shit just doesn't.
Well, that's kind of the
doesn't
point.
work.
The point of philosophy is to find an overarching theme that you can live your life by.
Right.
But every time, like Brian's a Kantian ethicist. That's his whole deal. I'm an existential nihilist. Right. Like these are different. They clash fucking hard. So. Every time he says something about like time or time management, I come out with time's a construct, and he'll like fucking turn purple. yeah, is it a fucking asshole? It's like car's a construct, fucking road's a construct. Yeah, what are you wearing? Glasses, a construct. Go die in a field, you fuck.
Oh boy.
Anyway, so
Timothy
Leary. So he starts. He starts getting really popular and really popularizing the idea of LSD all across the nation. And kids are falling for it left and right. They're like, yeah, fucking turn on, tune in, drop out.
Yeah, it's fine.
Like, but he's not like giving you like what to do after that. So he's like, yeah, essentially he's just saying,
well, I dropped out. Now what?
Yeah, take drugs and tell the cops to eat shit. And then... I mean, whatever the acid tells you to do, I guess.
I guess, work part-time at a filling station.
Yeah, like I was I was shocked because my dad was a big fan of Timothy Leary, and he would talk about him every now and then, usually with this anecdote that I'll tell in a second. But I'd always kind of pictured him as like this like fucking relevant social character. But after I watched a couple documentaries and read some things, I texted my mother. Mm-hmm. I usually I'm talking about my mom's a cranky old bitch. Mm-hmm. She tells me all the time that I'm saying that. So I was like, well, I noticed that on the podcast today you called me a cranky old bitch again. So this time I'm going to say my mother's a really brilliant analytical person. Mm-hmm. And I asked her today, I said, hey, Mom, was Timothy Leary just kind of a stupid asshole? And she said, a pseudo-intellectual, self-aggrandizing, egotistical scammer.
Love
I'm
it.
like, yeah, spoken by somebody who was there. Okay. Beloved by many, many fatuous assholes.
Yeah, hearing everything about him, he seems like he would be an endearing figure to someone who is just sort of a listless, like, oh, I'm at college because my parents,
nothing's important.
Yeah, parents saved a college fund, so I'm here. I'm going to study philosophy and, with a minor in psychology. And I have this professor that keeps giving me mushrooms. He's the best.
This society's bullshit. I should fucking live in the woods. I mean, I guess I should go to restaurants when I can, but
yeah. You know who else lived in the woods? Ted Kaczynski.
Anyway, so like he's getting popular. In the meantime, he's still fucking living pretty high on the hog. He's making money. He's got like endorsement deals. He's on like talk shows and shit all the time. He's a figure. He's at like John Lennon's fucking bed in.
Oh.
Like there's a video
That
of
tracks.
Lennon and Yoko playing guitar and do the all we are saying.
Oh, God.
Give peace a chance. Which I always thought was
Shut
the
up.
dumbest shit I ever heard in my life. Anyway,
Yeah.
you fucking dickhead. What
From a guy who used to beat women.
You're fucking doing this in bed? Well, get in the streets, dickhole. Fucking throw a rock. What the fuck are you doing?
I'm too rich.
I'm too rich to fucking to what? To anything?
Yeah, he too rich.
I didn't expect that. Funny. But like, yeah, Leary's there and he's like clapping and smiling and singing. He looks like a fucking idiot. He's shirtless. He's got like flowers in his ears. Like, you're 50 years old, man. Get your shit together. You were a fucking Harvard professor. What are we doing here? Like, there's no end game to any
living
of this
by his
shit.
own rules, man.
There's no fucking, it's all love, man.
You
Like,
know
yeah,
what? We
but
all
like,
fucking die, I guess.
but it's fucking crazy. It's crazy.
It is crazy.
Because this is just like, it's obviously just like, one, it's a symptom of taking too many fucking drugs.
For sure.
You know, and as an enthusiast, if you like, the drug doesn't give you the fucking answers. Maybe DMT does, but like the fucking acid and mushrooms aren't giving you the fucking.
TNT gives you something. I don't
It gives
know.
you something. There's some stuff.
I don't know if those are answers or not.
One time, the character that played my podcast smoked DMT, and for a minute there, I was like fucking coasting off the rings of Venus,
Oh, God.
talking to a guy made of glass. That was cool.
Yeah,
But-
and I don't know what question that answered, but
nothing. That whether or not they're. We were talking about. I remember the guy being like, "Oh, you're made out of meat? That's crazy." but yeah. So like, the whole thing about these hallucinogens is they're not giving you fucking answers to anything. They're just opening your perception to a place where if you were given like a shove in a good direction,
Yeah.
you might get that. But like. He's shoving people in a stupid dickhead direction,
right.
which is fucking dangerous. This is the reason Nixon called him the most dangerous man in America and referred to him as a poisonous, evil man.
again, Richard Nixon is the human equivalent of, when you're
No,
driving and
no,
the
Nixon
sun's
sucks real
sun's in your blind spot. It's like in your face, and you put the visor down, but the sun's right in that
Right
spot
there.
between the visor and the rear view mirror,
The
and so you
worst.
have to cock your head. That's Richard Nixon.
Yeah, but there were so many TV shows and
soggy
shit.
cereal.
There's so many TV shows and shit in the 60s that would have like a cult leader giving their members acid and they were like eating a baby or a sandwich or some shit. Like,
Jesus Christ.
because it was all just this anti-LSD propaganda. A lot of it was headed by G. Gordon Liddy. You familiar with G. Gordon Liddy?
Yeah.
He was one of the guys who were like fucking broke into the Watergate Hotel. And it was like a government operative, fucking CIA.
Yes.
But G. Gordon Liddy was like put on the case to Leary and fucking like raided his house, all this shit.
Yeah.
All right, so like, make a long story short, this is pretty much, you get the story. But the fun anecdote about Leary, the one my dad used to tell a lot, is that he got busted crossing the border into Mexico with like an eighth of weed or something. Got sentenced to 30 years in jail.
Okay.
Still kept fucking around. He like didn't end up going to jail for that. Eventually got cleared of it, and then like a week later got busted again for like 2 joints, and then did go to jail. Like he was in prison. He's got a 10-year sentence, and on the way into prison, they give you this like psychological exam, right? And he took it, and it said, oh, like so he's probably passive, real easy to deal with, very pliable.
Right, he's not going to be a violent.
Yeah, we can
inmate.
like put him over here in like the gardening area,
Right. Low security,
low security, yeah,
low
exactly.
security risk.
Well, he escaped because he had geared it that way because he had written those exams when he was a Harvard psychologist. But I looked at that a little bit more, like what he did after that. The Weather Underground, big revolutionary group in like the 60s and 70s, got him to Algeria, where he was to team up with like the Black Panthers and do like an anti-U.S. government thing.
Jesus.
Black Panthers very quickly upon meeting him are like, oh, this guy's a fucking fatuous asshole. He's vacant fucking dumb shit, drug hippie, useless fuck. So they kick him right the fuck back to the States.
Oh, really?
He's bouncing around Europe for a little bit.
I thought the end of the story was going to be he just died in a
No, he gets nabbed in Spain, whatever.
hash induced stupor in Morocco or something.
What he did was he went back to he got captured, extradited, went to the States, and then turned in all of his guys from the Weather Underground. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, the guys that got him out that helped him escape from jail.
Real dick.
He flipped on him. He's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
His girlfriend at the time, young lady, he wrote to her to be like, hey, can you corroberate my story? And she said no, and then went underground for 22 years.
Holy
so
shit.
fucking big props to her. Anyway, that's little wrap up there. this was a very fucking boring man all the way across the board that just so happened to be clued into and a huge creator of one of the most interesting subcultures that's existed in the United States.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
this boring piece of shit asshole just fucking pseudo intellectual fucking fuck just found a way with drugs to endanger a lot of lives and ruin a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
And cause a lot of damage while still coming off as this like flower power enlightenment pseudo guru dickhead.
Oh, gross.
And that's Timothy Leary. Part 2. John McAfee.
Ooh, John McAfee's a fun one.
John McAfee's fun and not so fun because
He's not. No, arguably he is very little fun. But
he's
a
like
psycho.
This is the thing about McAfee, right? He's a big cultural figure in his time and place, which is like you could say early 2000s to until just a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right. John McAfee is the creator of the McAfee antivirus program, which not used as widely now.
Still bugs you when you open your computer.
It's still around.
Yeah, it still tells you it's time to
a
update.
hugely popular antivirus program, but like he launched it in the 90s and it was on every fucking computer forever.
100%.
Before he was anything other than just like a tech entrepreneur programmer guy, he was in everyone's home with the McAfee antivirus.
Yeah,
software.
100%.
It was installed basically on every guy.
Every Windows computer
Yeah.
had McAfee antivirus pre-installed. You had like a trial, maybe year or something like that, and then you had to purchase it.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you didn't purchase it, you'd get a pop-up every time you turned it on your computer.
You gonna buy it yet? You gonna buy it yet? You
If
gonna buy
not
it yet?
multiple, going, oh, you're at risk.
Right.
You are at risk.
So John David McAfee was born September 18th, 1945. He's a British and American computer programmer.
Okay.
Businessman and a part-time politician. A little bit
Did
later
he go
there.
into politics?
He ran for president, bro.
Did he really? Yeah. I did not know that.
After the murder. So
Spoilers.
yeah, right. Yeah, he was born in England and quickly came to the United States as like a baby.
Born in England in 1945.
Yep.
That was a wild place to be at that time.
That was post-war.
Just.
Yeah, that's fair. He was born in England. McAfee was born in Cinderford in the Forest of Dean in Gloucestershire.
Oh.
Yeah,
I wonder how close that is to
September
Scrooby.
1945. On
Nottinghamshire.
Scrooby, Nottinghamshire, right off the right outside of the Forest of Dean in Gloucestershire.
Probably not.
No, probably not. But he was born on a U.S. Army base. His father was an American soldier, Don McAfee. He was stationed there, and his mother was British.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
okay.
You know, when he was a kid, his father was a super abusive alcoholic that eventually ended up committing suicide.
Oh.
By gunshot. Right.
Yikes.
When he was like 15 or something like that. So American boy, grew up in Virginia.
Yeah.
Outside of Roanoke.
Okay.
He was just a fucking tech nerd, you know.
Sure.
Prone to a party, but there's not a whole lot about his early life that's even mildly interesting, really.
Right.
He's
boring man.
He's a fucking unbearably boring man. Like, he's a computer programmer.
Yeah.
Like,
I know that once he started, so I know a few things about him, just sort of in the recesses of my brain, and I don't know how much of it is accurate, but I feel like didn't he start having like a lot of getting in trouble for sexual advances and like to women, like once he started getting some clout for being like
there was some
guy.
complaints and stuff like that, and then like we'll get there, but eventually there's pretty strong allegations of
murder,
hebephilia, which is the sexual attraction to minors after puberty. You know? People throw pedophilia around all the time. Let's throw hebephilia.
I think there's coprophagia in there too.
Yeah, he likes
which
poop.
is
A big poop guy.
Enjoying the poops.
He's a big cum guy, you know, in general.
Is he really?
Yeah.
You said it.
John Peeny Vigini McAfee.
His or others? Who's come?
I don't think it mattered.
No. Okay. All right. Cool.
No. Okay. So McAfee, he worked at NASA from 1968 to 1970. Yeah.
Really?
He was a part of one of the NASA missions, one of the Apollo missions. Just doing basic programming stuff. This is low level tech.
Okay.
Like he's ones and zeros and ones and zeros.
I got you.
Computer screen. chain smoke cigarettes,
Right.
drink
He's
a lot of
programming
coffee,
stuff.
click clack, click clack.
There's
Yeah.
so much programming that goes
Yeah.
into those. Yeah,
But
it
he's
makes
good
sense.
enough that he's in fucking NASA
That's
in the 60s. Like
probably-
that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
And from there
You also got to think about, is it that impressive? Because how many big dick computer programmers existed back then? That was still pretty new stuff.
Also, he's pretty young. I mean, like, he was born in 1945. This is 1968, so he's 22 years old working at NASA.
That's cool.
That's big dick shit. I don't care, because at 22, he's working for the guys going to the moon.
Yeah.
Like, they'd been to the moon at this point.
Right.
Supposedly. So
Oh, Jesus.
I believe that they did. But he's working at NASA for 2 years. He went to Univac as a software engineer. Software designer and engineer. Univac was the maker of the first personal computer,
Okay.
right? Which was the size of a fucking an office floor.
All I think of is Unilever. Is it Unilever, the soap?
Yeah. Well, Univac also, interestingly, was the makers of a kind of vacuum cleaner. It was like a rail vacuum cleaner. It was like a rounded tube with a hose, like old ladies in the 50s.
Yeah.
But they also, because of the vacuum tube technology used in the computer, Univac worked and made like one of the biggest fucking advancements in computers of all time. It was like the size of an
they were
entire floor of an
early
office building.
PCs.
Yeah, it was one shitty computer that was like not anywhere as near as good as your smartphone, and it was fucking 12 tons of metal on an office floor. You know, he worked there for a while. He worked as Xerox as an operating system architect.
Okay.
The Computer Sciences Corporation. Come on, you know that one.
So he knew what he was doing computer wise. He was
He worked at fucking Lockheed Martin.
He's got to be a brilliant programmer to have all
absolutely.
these,
he's one of the first like really well-known, really ass-kicking fucking programmers out there.
Okay.
You know?
NASA. I mean, right now he's got NASA. He's got a company I don't know, but they made one of the first, if not the first. Did you say the first or one of the first?
Univac, I believe it was the first real working like
personal computer.
Okay. Even though like my personal computer is the size of a fucking building.
Yeah, he's got Xerox, which at the time was a big deal.
Yeah, huge.
And Lockheed Martin, which has always been a big deal.
Back in the day, they used paper.
Yeah,
Xerox was everywhere.
Yeah. So I mean, he's got to have some kind of he's got to have some sort of brilliance in terms of programming.
But one of his big drawbacks in life always was that he has a lot of paranoia, right? But in this circumstance, his paranoia helped him out because in 1986, while he was working at Lockheed, he read about the Brain computer virus, which is like a notorious, almost like, how do I put this? Like conspiracy-driven computer virus. Like it was just a fucking computer virus. But the idea that was being spouted was like, it'll shut down every fucking computer.
Oh, God.
It'll destroy.
Okay. Right.
You know. So he got real fucking weird and like fucking neurotic about that. And he's like, oh no, all my computers. And he found it terrifying. But he sensed a business opportunity. He went about creating an antivirus software that could detect the computer virus and remove it automatically. That was like a huge advancement because there really wasn't much of that. Before then, you'd have to have a nerd do it. So anyway, he creates the McAfee antivirus software in 1987 and McAfee Associates, which became a massive fucking corporation.
Okay.
Massive corporation.
Okay.
Like every computer you ever saw. And this is the birth of computers in your home, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Like we were saying.
Well, so by the mid 90s, I'd say 94, 95 is when people are like really start buying a lot of computers. Early to mid 90s is when people start having computers in there. Computers get compact enough.
Well,
so personal computers already existed in people's homes, but you had to have programs for everything. Mid 90s is when the internet, when you started getting those, the discs, the AOL discs.
Yeah.
And then that's when everybody wanted a computer because now you can surf the World Wide Web.
So in 1987, he invents this, right? But at that time, he's a computer programmer, software nerd, making, moderate, high, middle class income, just whatever computer bullshit. He worked at fucking NASA. He's got some money, but he's not like a rich guy. But by 1990, only 3 years later, he's making $5 million a year off his company.
Whoa.
Like, it's a massive growth in wealth. And kind of my comment, I think, through his whole life is like, that's bad. That's bad for him. Because he's just, when you're a fucking weird little nerd,
A paranoid guy who's real good at computers, which the world is largely now
definitely living in fantasy his
digitizing,
whole
yeah.
fucking life, just click clacking on his computer. All of a sudden, he's fabulously well to do.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, by then he's making $5 million a year. The company was incorporated in Delaware in 92, had its public offering the same year. In 93, McAfee stepped down as chief executive, but he remained as the chief tech officer.
Okay.
In 1994, he sold his remaining stake in the company. He sold the company for $4 billion.
Wow. In 94?
Yes.
Holy
In
shit.
unbelievable, ungodly amount of money. And my take on this is that he probably got about $1 billion out of it, because you got to pay everybody off. You got everything to put the company in.
Oh no, what am I going to do with that?
Exactly. But I mean, like, this guy went from, and we're talking in 1994. So in less than 10 years, he went from making just like a salary as like a click clack tech guy with coffee stains on his shirt to a billionaire.
God.
Like that.
Jesus.
Right. So he is now in like semi-retirement ish.
Yeah.
He's a young guy.
You
dude.
don't have to make any more money.
Yeah, it's
ever.
only 94, so he's like, what, like 50?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, he's got $1 billion, and he hasn't done dick with his whole life.
You could spend over $100 million a year, never invest anything, just spend $100 million a year, and you would still die before you ran out of money.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. It's insane.
You would
Especially,
still have half of your money before you
what's
die.
really fucking insane is, guess how much money he had when he died in 2019?
How much?
$4 million.
Okay.
The man spent $1 billion in 20 years.
God, I don't even know if I could. I mean, I could if you presented me with the challenge.
Yeah,
but
Brewster's Billions, I guess. What the fucking?
Yeah, if I had to.
If I had to, I could spend $1 billion.
But I think, like, if I was just living my life, I don't think I could.
Right, but like, okay, so now you got this guy. He became wildly successful and has always been nerdy little fuck, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's unleashed and he's got no responsibilities. He invests in a bunch of weird business ventures, like fucking like guided fucking what are those paragliding tours and shit like that? Like, he invests in weird businesses.
Paragliding?
Yeah, invests in the weird tropical stuff. But
Okay.
he also he starts doing this yoga thing. Where he's like teaching yoga on TV, and he's like a personality, and he's kind of a young, good-looking guy at this time,
Weird.
right? All this like just keeps going for a while. He gets weirder and more paranoid. He starts buying guns. He fucking gets he'd been sober for a good amount of time because he'd had some drug abuse problems when he was a kid. He starts getting back into the shit. So this brings us to the early 2000s, right?
Okay.
He's rumored to be investing in cartels in Mexico.
Okay. To what
Yes.
end?
To more money and cocaine.
Okay.
He wanted a drug and a money. But also just like the notoriety, because he's a bad boy and he's a fucking gun guy, and he's super paranoid that the government, like the American government's after him. He goes and buys a compound in Belize and becomes like the toast of the town and fucking entertains the police and shit, has parties, but he's also got armed guards and special forces guys.
Yeah, I
all
know he
around
had
him.
like special, like he
Yeah.
had hired security.
And this is
he had like a big compound, right?
Yeah,
in
this
Belize.
this is apropos of nothing. There is nothing about him whatsoever that would lead you to believe the American government is after him. He was a legitimate businessman. He sold his business interests. Yeah, he dicked around a little bit and did a bunch of fucking drugs and shit, and like fucked up a lot, some very debaucherous shit over the course of a decade.
Sure. But he did. This is before the murder.
Oh, this is before the
Okay,
murder.
okay.
So, like, at a certain point, he's so fucking starting to get so strung out and weird after multiple weird little run-ins with the police.
I wonder if it had anything to do with the cocaine.
A lot of it had a lot to do with the cocaine and just the guzzling booze. Like, he's just shit-faced all the time.
Yeah.
He's on his compound. He's got his armed guards.
He's got his armed guards. He's
You
got underage hookers coming in left and
he's
right,
making
shitting on him.
all kinds of underage hookers and shit. And he's just fucking
Literally.
making insane claims. Like, he's got software, like he has control of the McAfee antivirus software that it can see into everyone's home, that it can see inside of the White House. But here's the thing. Nobody knew how to prove that wasn't true. because
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like
he designed the
the
software.
government's after me, and then he says all this crazy
No,
shit, and
this
the government's
fucking-
like,
this guy designed
should
the
we be after him?
software to have some corners and pockets and like files and doors that you couldn't access.
Okay.
So nobody could go into the software and prove that there wasn't some malware spyware shit on there.
Oh my god.
So he just used it as like weird leverage.
Uh-huh.
Like this is the kind of guy that like he ran his own website called whoisjohnmcafee.com,
Oh boy.
right? Making himself kind of like the first sort of social media influencer kind of guy in a way, one of the early ones.
Yeah.
Where he would like do weird videos of him like fucking pretending to smoke bath salts and like singing songs and shit and like do like weird green screen backgrounds and like like this weird shit, like legitimately weird shit.
He's got a strange number of I've got him pulled up on my computer right now. He's got a strange number of photos of him holding guns.
Yeah, he's big on guns.
A lot of them, and there's one of him, and he's got to be older in this. I mean, he's got to be in his probably 60s, maybe late 50s, early 60s, holding a 38 to his own head.
Yep.
And I'll give you guys time to Google that. But yeah, he's a wild. He's a weird dude,
And
man.
that's before he even goes to Belize. Because here's the big thing. So in the early 2000s, he goes to Belize, buys his own house, becomes kind of a big deal on Belize, sort of a party guy. You ever come across these guys who like hang out at tiki bars and they have a lot of money for some goddamn reason? Like you've probably run into a few of these in your time. They're always
just dudes out of the bar that have
they're always
too much
wear
money.
like a Tommy Bahama shirt, and they're always at the same fucking bar drinking the same drink, but they're always there, and they've got fucking all the money in the world for some
Yeah, I
reason.
know what you're talking about.
We live in Florida. Like, we fucking see that shit all the time.
I know the type of guys you're talking about.
But this guy still had more than $500 million. So
Jesus.
he's buying fucking, like, ATVs and shit for the local police department in Belize. He's, like, making friends and buying them cars and shit.
He tried to go to Belize and be like what's his name? Escobar.
Yeah,
he tried to be
wanted-
the Escobar of Belize.
That was his thing. That was like what he was trying to do. He wanted the following. He wanted the fame. He wanted like attention paid to him. He wanted people to think that he was this dangerous man. You know, that's why he kept insisting that like I can see inside all these government offices. I can fucking see what the president's
I can
doing.
bring down the whole government.
Which is nonsense. It's absolute bullshit. He's a fucking weird, lying, manipulative narcissist. But in the he wants this so bad. He wants people to see him.
Yeah.
Like this is a guy who would wear disguises to hide from the police ostensibly. And tell everyone at the shop where he's getting the disguise, like the fucking wig cut and shit. He'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm John McAfee. You know the virus software? Like, yeah, you're gonna be talking about me." Like, this is the weirdest thing. So anyway,
not much of a disguise, man.
so he's got this compound on the beach in Belize. Right?
I knew about that.
He there's more here too. You guys should Google him if you really want to like do the weird deep dive. But this guy just gets fucking weirder and weirder all the time, and I'm not going to entertain too many of the conspiracy theories around him.
Okay.
But there are
Entertain one.
later in his
Or
life,
don't if you don't.
his third wife, his last wife,
Oh, we had 3 of them.
was a woman he picked up as a prostitute in Miami.
Of course she was.
Seems like a nice lady from the documentary.
Okay.
But she swore up and down that while she was seeing him, while she still had a pimp, the pimp hooks her up with somebody from the cartel who threatened to kill her if she didn't poison him. But she loved him so much that she threw the poison away and told him all about it. And
This is her story
They
or his
fled
story?
Miami. It's her story.
Her story.
Or at least it's the story that she was told to tell.
Okay.
Like, so that's you can on Netflix. There's a documentary called "Running with the Devil" about his last couple of years, and she tells that story directly into the fucking camera, like no bullshit.
Huh.
Yeah, but it's still okay. I mean, if anything, I would think that if that was because she's saying like it's because he knows too much.
About what?
I don't. They don't specify
About the cartel?
I
It
would
would have to be about the cartel. If the cartel's wanting him dead.
Yeah, but I would say it's because he maybe ran a bad deal or he did some fuck shit with like cartel stuff. If that was even something that happened.
But yeah, but also it sounds like from what I know, he was like paying the police, he was paying the cartel, he had enough
Yeah.
he had enough money for all this shit.
So okay, so let's get to the murder.
Yay.
So he's got this beach house in Belize. So he's got 11 aggressive security dogs. He's got a bunch of fucking weapons. He's got unsavory characters. Drug dealers,
Yeah.
underage prostitutes. The police said that they caught him with a 16-year-old girl in his home at one point.
When you've got that type of money.
or in his bed.
When you've got that type of money.
Yeah, in
you're
fucking
in
Mexico,
Belize. You're in Belize. Especially in the 90s, that was an extremely poor
This is
country.
the early 2000s.
Okay, even then.
Yeah.
Pretty poor country.
Yeah,
I mean, even if you've got cities, or towns that are catering to tourism and have, a solid economy based around that, there are still a lot of areas that are very, very poor. And if you show up and you've got $1 billion fucking dollars in the bank account, or even some fucking semblance of that, even $1 million in the bank account, you are, by all intents and purposes, in that country in the early 2000s, you can buy anything or anyone you want.
Yeah, 100%. Like for instance,
like a poor 16-year-old girl.
For instance, later after he flees Belize, he flees with his girlfriend, who he says that he met when she was 18. But then later says that he's been with her for a year and a half, and she's like just 18. So
Stop.
So the guy's he's a weird creep.
Gross.
I'm not saying he's like a rapist or anything, and fucking countries like that have that kind of shit all over the place. But I'm certainly not fucking endorsing it. So
And listen,
so the only person that's
age of consent be damned. If you are how old was he at this time? In the early 2000s? 60 something, yeah? 50 something, 60, or late 50s, early 60s. I'm sorry. If
he was born in 1945, and this is like 2007.
Okay, so he's over 60.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that, one, you've got anything in common with a 16-year-old girl who, by the way, grew up in fucking Belize, Mr. British American guy.
Yeah.
Two, age of consent is, I don't even want to get into that. A 16-year-old girl has no business. Somebody needs to step in and be like, no.
Yeah, back the fuck up.
No. So you can't make this decision.
One person who had an issue with all these hijinks, this tomfoolery, this balderdash.
I hope it was the chief of police.
No, is a guy named Gregory Fall, who was his next door neighbor, or about 100 yards down the beach. I guess.
Okay.
Gregory Fall was an American investor guy. I think he was a bar owner or something like that.
Okay.
Nothing worth even really thinking about.
Okay.
But he had a pet parrot that he walked around with, and every time any of fucking McAfee's unchained mad security dogs saw this guy with his bird, he'd chase him. So the guy's constantly calling the police and being like, "Hey, the dogs are dangerous.
Dogs,
he's got crazy armed men and underage girls and drugs. They never go to sleep." And he was complaint after complaint after complaint. McAfee's paying off the cops, yada yada yada. At one point, Gregory Falk threatens to poison McAfee's dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And then very shortly after, the dogs are poisoned.
Mm-hmm.
And then very shortly after, Greg Fall is found with a fucking bullet in his head.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to make any suppositions. Mind you, there was no convictions laid down. In fact, no charges were
It's
actually
weird how when you
pressed.
pay the police and buy them ATVs and stuff,
Well, okay.
you go, I wonder who shot this guy.
Yes and no. Because think about it. He's a person of interest. He's being investigated. He's like, I don't know. Like, he even like offers like, I'll put up like $25,000 if any information.
Which is
you know?
nothing. Nothing.
Yeah, like he's like, fuck it. But like, he's like, yeah, absolutely, no, I'll come in for questioning. He disappears. He's got to get the fuck out of Belize because he just shot somebody in the head, and his paranoia is now full swing. And he's like wearing disguises. He's bipping around Belize, hiding in hotels and shit like that.
My
He's got
God.
informants with the cops. He reaches out. Out.
Just imagine him showing up to a hotel
Dude,
in a disguise, like in a really elaborate
you can
disguise.
watch. There's a documentary on Netflix. You should watch it. It's crazy.
I just imagine him in this really elaborate disguise showing up at a hotel, like somewhere on the other side of Belize, which is a small country anyway, but being like, "Hi, I'd like to check in my room." John McAfee, tech billionaire.
McAfee antivirus. You know, like, it's not far from that kind of shit, honestly. Cause
you ever get those pop-ups? You ever get those? That's me. That's
It's
me,
a
baby.
small island too, so if like somebody shows up with armed guards and an entourage wearing a disguise, you might be like, "Hey, is that billionaire murderer?" So, but he fucking
Is he on an island? Because Belize proper.
he's on Belize property.
Okay, but that's not an island. The whole thing's not an island.
Yeah,
It has
no,
islands.
it's-
Is he on an island?
No,
or is
he's
he
on. He's on.
Okay,
Belize.
okay.
He had to be on Belize because he had to pick up the Vice News reporters that he ordered.
Stop.
He reaches out to Vice and he's like, "Hey, you guys want to follow me as I escape from Belize?"
Stop.
And they sent a reporter and
Of course they
a
did.
fucking a news guy or
How would
a
you
camera
not?
guy.
How could you not?
Because all right, the camera guy is a seasoned like war veteran kind of combat photographer, right? The reporter's just this fresh face, like this is gonna be crazy. Like Vice News in the early 2000s, just like we're gonna go in there hard.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like he's like, I can't wait to do underage hookers with John McAfee.
Early 2000s Vice News was just a bunch of dudes
just
listening,
a bunch of fucking dickheads.
tattooed dudes listening to metal and being like, "Fuck
Yeah, he's
it,
like, fuck it, yeah.
let's do crazy stories."
News. Which I actually loved. The fucking my favorite.
I did too.
My favorite Vice News thing they ever did was get fucking Dennis Rodman to take an undercover reporter with the Harlem Globetrotters to North Korea.
Jesus.
Have you ever see that one?
Yes.
That's one of the coolest.
It's insane.
It's one of the coolest documentaries ever
Yeah.
fucking made. That's
Yeah.
like Vice News is still very stupid and problematic in a lot of ways and caused more issues than they solved.
Yeah.
But like that is one of the most glorious pieces
Yeah.
of filmmaking I've ever seen.
I think the most problematic thing with them was that they glorified a lot of things that otherwise would have been like,
Like for instance, John McAfee
Yeah.
escaping from Belize.
Right.
Right? They're like, yeah, let's do it.
They put a spin on it that's like, this is fucking rad.
So this is where John McAfee's not a stupid fuck. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's getting attention on himself, which makes him safe because he's also super paranoid. He thinks they're going to fucking kill him. He's got this line that the Belizean government is fucking like, they're after him, you know, but he knows things. He's got software in their computers and shit. But like this shit is really weird. Like the Vice reporters get with them, they go to a hotel and then like, he gets a tip off from the police. They gotta run. So they fucking like they dip out.
Stop.
They're at this hotel. He lets them take like a picture of them together and they send it to their office and the picture fucking posts it. They post it on their website and it's got geodata on it. So McAfee's like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, they have to run again, you know?
Oh my God.
They catch a boat out of Belize into Guatemala. So he escapes with his 18-year-old girlfriend and these Vice News reporters and like his armed guards to Guatemala in a boat.
Okay.
This is, I don't even know how to describe how confusing this was when I read it. Okay. They go to customs to check into the country that they just got into illegally on a boat
Guatemala.
in Guatemala.
I mean, it sounds like they're going to customs and they're coming in through a legal port of entry.
No, they just crossed the border in a boat and then they're like, we'll go check into the country.
Yeah.
And they go to customs, but they don't have passport stamps.
Oh.
And the passport guys are
Does
like,
he have a passport?
yeah, but no stamp for saying legal entry. And they're like,
Well, he should. Okay, so he should
No,
have a
because
a
he's-
passport for leaving Belize.
yeah, but here's the thing. He won't get that because he's on the run from the Belizean government under suspicion of murder.
Right.
So he goes to customs like directly. This freaked me out for a second.
Well, so that is what you would do if you don't. So it's not any different than flying in. If you don't require, if the country doesn't require a visa, then yeah, you come in through a legal port of entry. You go to the customs office. You say, "Here's my passport." They ask you some questions. Where are you staying? How long are you staying? Yada yada yada, and then they stamp you if they decide that you can stay. But if you don't have, if you've left, if you have an open passport, basically, or an open visit from somewhere. Like this is all bureaucracy shit. Like
Right.
you have to show that you left this place. Like you went to Belize. There's the stamp that says you went in. Where's the stamp that says you left?
Exactly. So now they're in a little hot water. Get some attention, right? Like now, like people are paying attention. That's when he drops on the Vice News reporters, like, "Oh, you guys know that you're in this with me now, right?"
What do you mean?
Because they just assisted a fleeing fugitive to escape from a sovereign country and illegally crossed into a border. There's no journalistic jurisdiction for that. They have to work with him now.
I would argue if I was one of the journalists or the cameraman, I would argue I didn't pay for any of that. I'm just following you around making news, buddy.
Yeah, but here you are. You have just crossed national borders illegally with a fugitive.
Yeah.
And
I guess that's a real gray area, isn't it?
yeah, and you tagged yourself in a fucking geolocated photo before crossing
With a
into the
wanted
other
criminal.
country. Yeah, exactly. So like they're like, "Oh shit, we're fucking idiots because we work with Vice News." But so they have to stick with him because he's got the money
Oh my
Fucking Vice
God.
can't extradite them from Guatemala.
Jesus.
So now they're filming everything and sticking with him. So he's essentially got like filmed bodyguard guy, right? And here's where I was like, oh, this guy's a fucking weird genius. That 18-year-old girlfriend, she is the grand niece of the former, was it Attorney General of Guatemala?
Stop.
Just
Stop.
incidentally.
Is
Just
this
incidentally.
This is Samantha, right? Samantha's the
Yes,
girlfriend?
yes,
Yeah.
Sam. Yeah. So incidentally, his 18-year-old girlfriend is connected to the former Attorney General.
Christ
Right.
almighty.
So, you know, they're working a lot of angles to fucking get stamps, then get out. He holds a press conference. He tells the world that the Belizean government's after him. He gets fucking arrested and taken to jail, fakes a heart attack. And for some reason, air quotes, they extradite him back to the United States.
Ooh, probably nothing to do with that
Oh,
Attorney
no,
General
he's
grandpa.
Yeah, or his fucking money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
or
probably
that.
had nothing to do with that.
I bet those two things came together to form a whirlwind that just, he didn't even take a plane back. It just, the whirlwind that
Yeah,
it caused, picked him up and took him back.
The bips him back to Miami. He immediately picks up a prostitute who later becomes his wife. And 5 years later,
Yay.
he's running for the president of the United States under the Libertarian ticket.
Oh
or he's
my-
running to
what?
be the candidate for the Libertarian
Oh,
Party.
okay. To be a candidate. All right.
Right. So, yeah, he got back to the States. He's fucking around, fucking just doing his same thing. Buys another compound, buys a bunch of cars. He's fucking drinking and doing bath salts and getting weirder and older. And like,
What?
yeah, just fucking continuing to do the guns thing. And nobody's after him. Now he's a public personality. He's actually on the internet, like fucking doing like viral videos and shit. He's in rap videos. People know that he's this crazy guy now. So they're like, oh,
I missed all this.
dude, it's like, how do I put it? It's like the weird culture that we have in America now, where you can be a nut job and people are like, that guy's great. Is
Yeah.
like he's one of those guys.
Okay.
People like fucking deify him because he's like
It's the post. It's the post reality TV world.
yeah, exactly. So like you picture this guy with his fucking many cars and compounds and the guards and he's got prostitutes and cocaine and shit. And
God.
like it's like this glamorized like chunka, unka, unka, like a drone's flying in to look at all the like the glistening asses up by the pool or something.
Yeah.
In reality, this is a man pushing 70 years old who's fucking snorting meth and shit and like getting real fucking weird.
Yeah.
He takes
And about to hang himself to death.
He is then caught for tax evasion. He gets called out for not paying taxes for like 10 years. And he's like, you're right, I didn't pay taxes. No American should pay taxes. I'll never pay taxes. And without any sort of fucking legal anything, he goes on the run again. He buys
my
a fucking yacht from Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street, and like packs his fucking armed guards and his dogs and his wife and a cameraman, the same cameraman from the Vice News expose.
Oh, he's on John's payroll now.
Yeah, so yeah, he fucking throws them all on the boat and he fucks off and he goes to like, I don't know, say Cuba, right?
Okay.
Yeah, he pulls up to the port. They're immediately like, hey, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, you can't.
Get the fuck out of here. He's like, they're after us. He's fucking bath salts, guns, and fucking they run over to like Dominican Republic and they're like, he walks out of his boat with a gun on his hip and they're like, hey, what the fuck, man? He's like,
Oh my God.
So he eventually gets fucking arrested in Dominican Republic for possession of a fuckload of guns and drugs and all this shit.
Hey, laws are different in different countries, man.
He uses his European passport, like his fucking European birth certificate, to get extradited back to Europe.
Okay.
So he gets shipped across
So he's
the
got
Atlantic.
He's got dual citizenship. He's like a
'Cause he
European
was born in
citizen?
England, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so he gets shipped back to England. Fucking just bops around Norway and shit and like goes to Italy for a while. Gets arrested in Italy because of his tax evasion in the U.S. because of his extradition in Italy.
There is.
And then I think it's in Spain that he actually gets like locked up and then ends up hanging himself.
Yes, he was.
Right.
He was in Spain when he hung himself.
Now there is a massive conspiracy movement around that he started himself. He's like, if I ever kill myself, I didn't. He had a tattoo that said whacked. You know, like his wife and his wife's lawyer were like, he didn't do it.
Oh my God.
He was in good spirits. But if you watch the documentary, that guy is so fucking haggard and strung out and just fucking burnt by the time he's begging in a jail cell to like, hey, if you send me back, if you extradite me, I'll be in jail the rest of my life. And they're like, yeah, fuck you. That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
He fucking hung himself. That's my take on it anyway.
Probably.
So my take there on John McAfee's whole life is this was an empty man who really didn't have anything in him other than the desire for more, want, greed, avarice.
So he hung himself after the deal was made with Spain to send him back to the U.S. He
yeah,
was
once
like,
once
I'm fucked if I
extradition
go back.
was up, yeah, like, and okay, like I understand people being like, oh, John McAfee, even that fucking documentary I watched on Netflix, which I would recommend watching just for the visual stuff because it's fucking shocking. Looking at this guy, you can see his cold, dead eyes and be like, there's fucking no human in there. He's just this fucking void of want.
Right.
But like you can see the visual of him being like, I'll spend the rest of my life in jail. You can't send me back there. And he's just so old, so broken.
Well, like I said earlier, it feels like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you've spent your whole life sort of being this like, oh, they're out for me. But also look at me, look how great I am. Look at all these things I can do. I can buy this compound and I've got all these guys with guns and dogs and drugs and prostitutes and this and that. But they're after me.
Honestly.
And like you created the situation for yourself. You know what I mean?
The thing is, you know these people. Like there are people like this all over the place. Low level gangsters or fucking part-time criminals or shitty little dickhead coke dealers and shit.
When he was getting extradited, was that for the tax evasion or was that for the murder?
The tax evasion.
That was for the tax evasion.
Belize never even fucking pursued him for them.
Yeah, pay your taxes.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just pay your taxes?
Maybe because he only had $4 million left.
You don't think that the IRS will the IRS is probably the easiest thing to like work some shit out with. He's 75. I'll pay you $300 a year.
They'd be like, okay, John.
And the IRS would be like, okay,
yeah, fine.
And then you can take whatever's left after I die.
I think it was just like you, like I said, you know these low level gangster dickheads and fucking coke dealers and shit that like they want it be. They want to be gangsters. They're in it for the name.
Well, and I
for
think
the
a lot
light,
of times they get so caught up in the image that they've kind of made for themselves that they believe the bullshit as much as they've tried to convince everyone else to believe the bullshit.
Except this one had $7 billion, or fucking $4 or $1 billion, right? Like this low level cokehead shithead fucking gangster was gifted $1 billion by virtue of being a brilliant fucking computer programmer,
smart programmer that hung it up at what? How old was he? Like 30?
Yeah, exactly.
30 something.
You know, like at the time that a regular person would just be like starting a family and shit. Oh, he did have a daughter, by the way, that he never saw.
And $4 billion in 90, what was that? 96, 94, 94.
Yeah.
And $4 billion in 94 is probably the equivalent to like $20 billion today.
Oh, the Netflix documentary, by the way, intimates that he faked his own death. Which I think is bad journalism. Like, God damn. Also intimates at a certain point that he suggested or straight up claimed to have been the one that killed his father instead of his father committing suicide. This is all hearsay. Again, this is the perception. This is the weird fucking perceptive shit.
Someone who's caught up in their own story.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone who's caught up in their own story that's largely fiction.
And actually, I want to move on to another person who is caught up in their own story, but in a way that I think is extremely cool and healthy.
Okay.
Actually.
Let's do it.
Part 3. Werner Herzog.
All right. Werner Herzog. I dig it.
Dude, Werner Herzog is one of probably the most influential figures in my entire life.
He's a weird, cool dude.
He is boring. And I'm going to say that, but I'm going to say it like with a different spin than these other two guys. These other two guys are boring for different reasons. Timothy Leary, shallow, weird fuck. John McAfee, not a person. No personality in there. Like, but Werner Herzog is, I think, an absolutely complete human being.
Sure.
That has so much discipline that he's boring as fuck.
Well, I mean, at least in terms of like listening to him speak, he doesn't emote.
No, at all. If anyone here doesn't know who Werner Herzog is, he's an acclaimed German filmmaker. He's made a lot of movies that if you haven't heard of him, you don't know.
Brilliant guy, and he's got such a macabre delivery.
It's amazing.
About
like
anything.
You may know him from The Mandalorian. He's the character, the Client. He's the one who says, I would like to see the baby.
That's right. I forgot about that.
He's also the bad guy, I think, in Jack Reacher 2 with Tom Cruise.
interesting.
But he has this really dry German accent.
And like I said, he's got this very macabre delivery where he like just there's no it's just this emotionless delivery that's just kind of vaguely sad.
Yeah, and
like,
but he talks of like
it's just
here's
monotone.
Here's some of my favorite Herzog quotes, and as close to his accent as I can get it. And I think I'm not terrible.
Okay, I'll listen.
But it's a hugely distinctive accent.
I'll grade you
Doesn't
on it.
sound like any other fucking German.
No.
The birds here do not sing; they just screech in agony.
That's a pretty good one. You're real close.
Hold on, is another one from his like Jungle series that I like a lot. The jungle is a cacophony of overwhelming and disastrous murder. I love it very much.
You gotta. There's a little bit of Schwarzenegger lingering.
There's
in
a
there.
little, exactly. I can't
take
quite
that out,
dodge
but yeah.
the Schwarzenegger, but he also breathes. Like
Yeah, he does.
It's like this low.
Yeah.
And Werner Herzog.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to my Starbucks. Like. But Herzog. The reason that we choose Herzog is that like he's legendary for just these dry, weird, sad quips. Like I listened to like half of his autobiography in preparation for this, and fucking I would have anyway because I love this guy's voice. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Does he narrate his own
He
autobiography?
narrates his own autobiography,
Okay.
and he's like, there's a bit in there that I heard.
That's good because I feel like who else would you get to
No, you couldn't.
to narrate that?
Dude, if you fucking put an audiobook out of Werner Herzog's autobiography and you had somebody else narrate it, fuck
ruined
that.
it. You ruined
I
it.
wouldn't listen to
Yeah,
it.
you ruined it. That's funny.
The jungle is a cacophony of overwhelming murder. Like, I don't want to hear that. All of my art comes from pain.
Who else would you even get to narrate?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
You couldn't even get a regular German guy because they'd be too German. Herzog, cool thing about Herzog is his American pronunciations are almost perfect. He doesn't even call himself Werner. He calls himself Werner Herzog.
Does he really?
Yeah.
Okay.
His pronunciations are really good.
Okay.
That's why it's so fucking weird. But okay, I digress. Werner Herzog is a brilliant filmmaker I've been watching since I was very young. I remember when I was just like 9 years old, I watched the movie Agira, Wrath of God, which is... If you haven't seen it, is a fucking bonkers flick. It's about conquistadors running through South America trying to find El Dorado.
Oh, that's right.
And it is unbearably gorgeous, but like on the lowest possible budget you could imagine. Right. And it's beautiful because there's this shot right at the opening of these conquistadors and like their porters walking through the mountains in the Andes. Right. Any other director ever would just close up on them walking past, no problem. Right. Herzog has the entire cast walk through the Andes Mountains in the clouds. He goes thousands of feet, and they're fucking walking.
No soundstage bullshit here.
No bullshit. And it's a long shot from far away, and you're watching these motherfuckers climb a mountain.
That's crazy.
And, like they raft down a very aggressive South American river. He's like, you get on the boat and go. Like there's no bullshit. There's no safety measures. Like he really pioneered like a way of filmmaking that was just disastrously dangerous, like in a way that you couldn't quite comprehend. But okay, so like, get a little background here. So Werner Herzog was born in Munich, German Reich, on September 5th, 1942.
Oh boy.
Yeah, his father was a Nazi. Like,
okay,
yeah,
so
he's got no bones about it.
I claim that being born in England 45 was a little wild. Being born in Germany in 42 is even crazier.
The thing about Herzog that you come to learn is that he says the wildest fucking stuff about his life. All of it is markedly true, if possibly lightly colored to create his own character.
Right.
Because this character of Werner Herzog is not the real guy. Like that's something I've discovered in this.
Okay.
I listened to probably 6 or 7 different interviews his tonal inflection on retelling these stories, because he has like a handful of like the same like 5 or 6 stories.
Right.
It's the exact same
He's
reference
one of those
material.
that can like
Yes.
retell the story the same way.
Same
over and
way.
over and
He's
over
got
again.
his
Yeah.
beats down. He's got his character down.
So he's cultivated this
Yeah.
sort of mythology.
Exactly. He's
Right.
cultivated his own mythology, and he's fucking everywhere. Like you'd think of him as this reclusive German auteur. He's on. You can look him up on Spotify right now. There's a list of at least a dozen podcasts that he's guested on.
Really?
Like there. Yeah, and he's on late night shows.
Hey, Werner, before you die, dude, come on.
Oh, that would be so fucking.
I don't even know how
That would be
I would prepare
so
for that.
cool.
I don't even know how I would prepare for
I
that.
wouldn't. I'd just be like, hey, what was
Just
what's
keep your
Klaus
eyes
Kinski like?
keep your eyes averted the whole time.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of this guy in general, but like his stories, I was gonna say, reading his book or listening to his audiobook, like there's an anecdote that I think I sent you a text of that
Yes.
was like, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do the voice again. In the winter, the hunters would call the wolves in the wood. While the wolves were out hunting, they would take the cubs and bring them to my house, and the young would play with them to much delight. This would end in their deaths. Like everything he fucking says.
Was the deaths? Did they kill
the,
him as
the wolf cubs?
as
obviously.
cubs? They killed him
Yeah,
as
they
cubs.
kill the cubs. Yeah, it looks like they're calling the wolves in the countryside.
Yeah, but
But that's his whole thing. His whole mentality is this dark, like
that
stark
saddens me.
reality.
That
It
saddens me, and it
saddens-
makes me understand why he's such a joyless
exactly.
person.
He's like that. He's like that. But also, like he's got so much of that in his life that I think that there's so many examples of stories like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know that like.
Well, you tend to think of German people as joyless in general, as a people.
Yeah.
They tend to be a little bit more stern, a little less, joyful.
Right.
Not that I haven't met some very joyful German people. I have, but
I met a really nice Austrian that stayed at my house recently.
really,
Yeah, nice lady.
but that combined with the fact that as a child you got to play with wolf cubs.
Yeah.
I've played with a wolf cub. It's one of the most magical things I've ever done in my
And
life.
then,
And
20
then at
minutes
night, he
later,
would do
somebody
these-
takes them and go knifes them in the yard.
Yeah, at night he would do these little baby wolf howls. He's like trying to get his howl down, and it was so cute. And then somebody's gonna kill it. I would never feel joy again. I would never feel joy again another day in my life.
Okay, so Herzog was born in Munich, München, in the German Reich in 1942, right? But he was born directly before a carpet bombing of the city.
Oh boy.
Like his mother would tell him of how when he was a baby, she found me in my crib, just like covered in fucking mortar and glass,
Like debris.
just covered in debris as a like 2-week-old baby.
Oh my
You know,
God.
so they fled Munich and went to a place in the Bavarian Alps where he
Okay.
grew up. He grew up very poor. He grew up without electricity or water. He didn't make a phone call in his life until he was 17 years old. He also like had never seen a movie until he was like 15 or 16. Like he had no concept.
Of late 50s, almost 1960. There's no reason to wait that long.
He was in a poor village in the Bavarian Alps post World War II.
Huh.
Like there weren't a lot of resources going on.
True.
So one of the stories that he fucking like, this is one of the things that made me go, all right, this is a bit, this is a character that he's doing. He tells the story about how his mother would get a loaf of bread for the week with her rations, and she would mark with a knife 7 marks to demarcate like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Oh Jesus.
And he tells the same story in multiple different interviews, and he says it just like this. He goes, I'm not going to do the accent again because it's so particular. But he says, my brother and I were clinging to her apron fringe, begging for food, and she turned around quickly with a look of sadness and rage that I've never seen before or since. And she said perfectly calmly, if I could get food, if I could take it from my ribs and give it to you, I would take it from my ribs and give it to you, but I can't, so you will have to go hungry. And he just says that exact same thing in multiple different interviews.
Yeah, well,
Which-
and that's what I'm talking about. That's such a macabre delivery.
Yeah.
Delivery, like the way the way he paints a picture with words.
Yeah,
I think is,
well,
he's
I
just
also
very good at that.
Interesting because he's a fucking fantastic director too. But like I was realizing while I was watching like some documentaries and stuff, and also seeing like fucking 20 of his movies. He's got 70 movies.
Wow.
Literally 70. He invented he and a guy named Lars von Trier, another director from Europe, created an entire like school of filmmaking called Dogma 95. It's
Okay.
like natural light, no ambivalent sound, no music, just fucking documentarian style shit.
Gotcha.
But he's really famous for doing these shots that are like way longer than they should be. You know, like he famously there's this great shot of a dwarf in the movie, like his second movie is called Even Dwarves Start Small. Weird German translation. But he tells this dwarf, he's like, I want you to laugh until there's no more breath in your lungs. And then he takes the shot, and it's like the dwarf is laughing and laughing, and then he just does this like like deep like bronchial cough and like stops for a second, looks around, and then realizes the camera's still rolling and just starts laughing again. It's one of the coolest fucking shots in movies ever. But it like is so stark and weird and real. Like that's the way that Herzog is. Everything's super
Right.
like, it's hard to describe, but so yeah, so he's got this like delineated sense of like stark darkness and reality. Like he says that psychoanalysis, to go back to our guy Timothy Leary for a second, is a disease. He says that people should not investigate themselves that way. They should look at the way the world is.
German mentality.
Yeah, exactly. So like he has never seen a fucking movie, right? He meets his father for the first time when he's like 13 and goes and stays with him. He's a town crier in this little town.
The father is? Or
the father is.
Okay.
He's a Nazi until the war ended and then became a town crier somewhere doing a hear ye shit. Right? Weird, right? Like
you don't think of town criers being around in the 1900s.
Yeah, it's like he grew up in a different age.
Yeah.
You know, World War II or post World War II in Bavaria.
Weird.
Like there's footage of him as a kid wearing like lederhosen and shit. Like it's fucking bizarre.
And his dad's like, it's 1948, and his dad's walking around the town going, the time is now 8:00. But in German.
When he was 13, he was told by a music teacher to sing in front of his class, and he refused. But he was almost expelled for refusing, and the incident scarred him so much that for several years he listened to no music and sang no songs. God. Like this is a stark motherfucker. And in his book, there's a retelling of an incident where he was like really passionate and angry as a youth, like always outgoing, like hitting people with rocks and shit, like really violent. And at one point, he got in an argument with his brother and stabbed him with a fucking knife, like with a pen knife.
What?
Stabbed the shit out of him, and the guy's still got like scars. And his regret for that, like he says in the book, my regret for that was so strong. I knew I could never let myself go again. From now on, my life would be discipline.
Jesus.
So this is just like a little insight into him. But at an early age, he went to the Munich Film School and stole a 35 millimeter camera.
Okay.
Literally stole it because he had been like petitioning. He'd seen a movie at that point, like Fritz Lang's something or other, and he'd seen a movie and he was like petitioning, like he's like 14 or 15. He's like, can you please let me borrow a camera? Because they loaned him out, and they're like, no, you're not a student. You don't have any of that shit.
You're a fucking 14-year-old kid.
So he like found himself, air quotes, in the area where they had the cameras. He fucking stole one, and he started making movies. And he got like good review on his first movie that he made with 35 millimeter. Even if you watch it now, it's really fucking cool and weird.
Yeah.
And never really looked back. But his approach to making movies.
What a weird like sort of sequence of events to make that dude who he is.
Right? It's bizarre. And that's like, I feel sort of strongly that after doing my research, he's created this character of Werner Herzog, the dry German, to accept the reality of his life, like the way he grew up. It's so bizarre. It's so out there. And I haven't gotten to anything yet. Like nothing.
You get into it.
So, all right. So he steals the camera. He starts making fucking movies. He gets good reviews. He makes friends with a German film critic, Lottie Eisner.
Okay.
She was a very famous like Jewish film critic and turned him on to a bunch of. She was the one who wrote the first good review of his first movie as a kid. They were like she used the words like German cinema's back after the war, like this kid.
And he
so
was like a teenager at the time.
he was a teenager. And
Wow.
yeah. So they became really good friends. In 1974, she fell very ill. Herzog had this like fucking revelatory moment where he's like, if I fly to her, she'll die. So I have to walk. So he walked from Munich to Paris.
Oh my God.
Like 1,000 miles.
Is that how far is that?
It's far, dude. It's fucking far as fuck. Germany and France are not small.
No, I know that.
But he believed that she wouldn't die if he did that. And not only did she like live, she lived for like months, like several years after that. And she got really annoyed and asked him if he would lift the fucking curse. And then she died 8 weeks later.
Wow.
But yeah, okay. So that was his first like good friend. He got weird financing for Aguirre Wrath of God. He started just doing this insane guerrilla filmmaking and these big concepts, and his whole deal was to like make them as stark and realistic as he could.
Okay.
But not in a weird, violent way. He's not like fucking like Coppola fucking hacking up a bull on screen or anything like that. He's just like, this is how it would have looked, you know? So Aguirre Wrath of God is this whole thing. He meets this guy, Klaus Kinski, who is a legitimate madman. He's like an actor, but he's not like an actor. Okay. And he converts this insane person into one of the most fucking enigmatic presences on screen ever. He does like 5 movies with him.
Okay.
And in every movie, this guy Kinski is fucking insane. Like he's threatening to kill people, shooting guns, like just raving mad. You can find footage of it all over the place.
Like not the character, like him actually.
No, like him, the
Okay.
person. He's far crazier than any of the characters he ever plays. Like to the point that like they're making this movie Fitzcarraldo, right, which is about somebody who pulls an entire like 22-ton or 220-ton fucking steamboat over a mountain to build like a fucking opera house in the jungle.
Oh my God.
Right. And he does it. He actually, using like Stone Age technology,
They actually did it.
hires fucking like he hires native like local tribesmen and shit, and they build weird like contraptions and pulleys and shit. And for the movie, they pull a real ship, not fucking around, over the mountain, which he didn't have to do because it's based on a true story. And in the true story, they cut the ship apart and moved it. But he's like, no, we must put it all together.
Oh my
But
God.
his anecdote from there with Klaus Kinski was like, I would not sit behind the camera with a gun, but I did tell him I would kill him with a gun if he did not take the shot. I said I would kill him and then myself. Yes, I said
Jesus.
that. But like, yeah, he's just like, to make this movie Fitzcarraldo, he, one, got a fucking steamship down the Amazon, right? In Peru.
Right.
And,
So, by the way, pretty fucking far down the Amazon, just FYI.
pretty fucking far down the Amazon, right? But like he started doing this movie about 6 weeks before a war between Peru and Ecuador broke out,
Oh.
right? He didn't have any permission to make this movie. He had hundreds of extras, several $1 million worth of equipment, a bunch of people, right at the border of a massive war.
Oh my
And he
God.
talks about how like, well, you know, yeah, if we didn't have permits, they would have killed us. So I had to forge them. So he forges documents. He and like his art design crew forge like film rights documents
Oh
and
my
shit
God.
for everyone on the crew, and like shows them to both sides. He forges them for Peru, forges them for Ecuador. Like,
Oh.
so they're just like flashing fake documents to like armed soldiers who are like, ah.
Hell yeah.
And in the meantime, he's doing that so he can pull a steamer vessel over a mountain
Over the
with
Andes.
logs and ropes. People died doing this. Tribesmen were crushed. Fucking
Holy
There's at least one anecdote of a guy who got bitten by a snake and cut his own leg off with a chainsaw.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like this is serious fucking business. And the whole time, Herzog's just like, yes, it must be so.
No. Jesus.
Yeah, and it goes on from there. There are anecdotes about this guy left and right, and it's all taken with this like this calm, this poise that is sort of his whole thing. And I believe that's because of his like dedication to his fucking, what did I say earlier? Discipline.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his like fucking discipline in life is like, I will do this.
Yeah.
But he's also just really fucking sad all the time.
I mean, but are you saying that you think that that's just he's created this character and now he's just that person, but like maybe behind closed doors he's just like dancing and singing and
Maybe
laughing
kind of
and,
sort of, because it's like, it's weird because you listen to him, if you listen to him the way he narrates his book,
Uh-huh.
it is total fucking boilerplate Herzog.
Uh-huh.
You know, everything is murder.
Yeah.
You know, but if you listen to him on this podcast and he's telling these stories, like he's told them a billion times.
Right.
He's telling the same fucking stories. Like, yes, my mother turns around and then says, I could take it from my ribs. I take
Sure.
it. And he's just kind of fucking running through it. And you can tell he's just kind of like hanging out. He's like, he's doing his bit. And he's like, yeah, I'm Herzog, you know me.
Yeah, I'm Herzog.
He's
You
just
know
kinda,
me.
he's fucking kind of casual and like a little bit laughy. And the way that he's portrayed, like there's a reference. He got shot with an air rifle in Los Angeles during an interview. Somebody fucking took a pot shot at him while he was doing this interview in like the Hollywood Hills.
With an air, like a BB gun?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they thought it was like a fucking gun. Like he got hit and was bleeding.
Okay.
Right? So there's footage of that, and the interviewer's like, "Oh my god, you've been shot and you're bleeding?" He's like, "No, it's not relevant. It's not of consequence." And he's just laughing it off like a regular guy. Be like, "I mean, I'm fine."
Yeah.
You know? The fucking every link that you can click on is like, he's shot live during an interview and doesn't fucking care. He's like, it
a BB gun.
is of no consequence.
Yeah, you got shot with a pellet
Yeah, I was
gun,
like,
dude.
fucking, as he bleeds, he just shrugs it off with his German indifference.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so like he's this like created character, and like although like the starkness and like the gray matter of that character is like the substance that he lives with, I found it fucking fascinating that he actually just so happens to be the most interesting guy that's ever fucking lived. Because that anecdote, the Ecuador Peru thing, that's just one of 8 million. There's so many insane stories about this guy that you would never fucking believe. Like, for instance, he did a movie with Christian Bale called Rescue Dawn, set in Vietnam.
Okay.
Right? They were doing this like guerrilla filmmaking thing, like he always does. And
Was
Christian,
he directing it?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Christian Bale's like, I'm not gonna walk through this fucking random Vietnamese river. I don't know what's in there.
Uh-huh.
So Herzog said, every river you walk through, I'll walk through first. Like, and he's 70 years old, dude.
Yeah, that's
Like,
kind of.
yeah. He didn't say bitch, but like,
But I mean, there was an implied bitch
Yeah.
at the end.
every fucking dude, like the level of anecdotes with this guy is kind of off the chain. Like,
How do you? I mean, you can't say no after that when your director's like, "I'll go first, bitch."
exactly. There's footage of
Except he didn't say bitch.
when he's doing Aguirre Wrath of God, right? They've got no budget, $300,000 to make this fucking movie. There's a scene where a guy has to like kind of like wallow in this like shallow river in like South American jungle,
Okay.
and the actor was concerned about it. So fucking Herzog strips down into his underpants and just does the scene like just first. He's like, "Look, you'll just cover yourself in leeches and you lay." Oh.
That's funny.
He does multiple other documentaries. Lots of documentaries.
He does a lot of docs,
He's done
yeah.
more documentaries than he's
Yeah, yeah.
done like fiction movies.
Yeah.
And they all have this weird edge to him. Like I've talked
Yeah.
about Grizzly Man on this podcast before.
Yeah. And I would also, I would almost like if somebody were just to be like, "Oh, I've never heard of Werner Herzog. Who is that?" I would probably say documentarian,
Yeah, documentarian's probably where it's at.
and that's probably what the first, And then I'd be like, "Well, he does other movies. Too. He's done other movies too, but he's primarily a documentarian."
I'm fascinated by the guy because every soundbite that you're going to get is going to be the darkest shit you ever heard in your fucking life.
Yeah.
It's going to be the wolf cubs are
Yeah.
killed. It's going to be the overwhelming murder. Fucking the trees here screech in pain.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be that shit. But like, it's you also watch the movie. You watch those movies, and there is many like like the sunshine is beautiful on the mountainside and shit.
Yeah.
Like there's as much of that as anything else. It just doesn't sound quite as good for the character.
It doesn't come across as German.
Yeah, exactly. When he's like, it was a joy to see that the family was reunited again.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound quite as good as like. There is no secret world of the bears, only a half-bored interest in food and the indifference of nature. But like, yeah, he's done documentaries about fucking a little German kid that wants to fly, so he joins the U.S.
also
Army.
you said
like,
Grizzly Man. He did the documentary Grizzly Man.
Grizzly
also,
Man,
so
which
if
is
you haven't
fucking
seen it, you should.
that's one of the movies you gotta see
Yeah.
in your life. But like documentaries about the ocean, documentaries about tribes living out in the fucking
He did a
frozen
documentary about
wastes.
the ocean.
The ocean, yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I have to see that.
He's done ocean documentaries. He did one that I
Well,
like a
because
lot.
when you think about an ocean documentary, you think largely. I mean, it is a place of a lot of
Overwhelming
wonderment.
consuming murder.
Well, also yes.
The void reflects the void in my soul.
But anytime you see like an ocean documentary, it's very awe-inspiring. There's a lot of wonder, because it's like there's so much that we don't even realize is
and
going on.
His narration of all this shit is fucking immaculate because he's a writer too. That he, in all of these interviews, one thing that I would love to mention, he doesn't talk about his movies.
Really?
Out of a dozen interviews I fucking listened to, he doesn't fucking talk about his movies. He says they are a distraction. He considers himself a writer.
Oh my God.
And he has written 2 books.
Really? I did not know that.
I mean, there's the autobiography. I actually don't know how many books he's written, but I'm gonna fucking try and read some more because his prose is fucking gorgeous. The way he talks about shit, it's crazy.
As I said before, very sad, very very macabre,
Very sad, very macabre, and it's just like the way. Wait, so what did I said some shit like when I was telling you that I was listening?
You know what he could have done. You know what he could have been an absolute fucking like stellar in his career. If he
would have been a
he
great
had fallen
tree. Probably a really good old gnarled tree.
I'm going to go back to a previous episode we did.
Huh.
He could have been a killer horror host.
Oh, he'd have been such a good horror host.
Would have been he wouldn't be one of the guys with the fake teeth in or any of that shit.
He'd probably be wearing like a suit.
He'd be more of like a Vincent Price type. Yeah. But he would have made a killer horror host.
Oh, he would have been great.
Just that delivery.
No,
delivery and that writing.
I said some shit to you on text while I was listening to his things. Like Herzog, I think he feels emotions the way the last woolly mammoths felt emotions. just looking out over a cold, windswept, desolate plain.
Yeah, we went back and forth on that a little bit. I said I think Werner Herzog feels emotions the same way watching fuzzy Skinamax at night when you were a kid is quote unquote watching porn.
Yeah, when I said with great effort and dedication. Yeah.
But it's still diluted. It's still fuzzy.
I think he's a lot like the director David Lynch, where like when he makes movies and shit, he captures really abstract concepts.
Yeah,
but he captures them like in you. I don't know how to describe this. It's like if you're watching a Herzog movie and he takes a long shot of just like a rock, that rock will have way more significance to you in your head while you're watching it be filmed than it would have if you saut it in real life.
Yeah.
It's really bizarre. He just like captures this like melancholy everything, this stark realism that really appeals to me as like a nihilist, Yeah, Herzog's still alive and he's still kicking. I don't know if he's gonna make any more movies, but he doesn't seem like he's really wearing down. He teaches a lot of like classes and stuff on film.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's huge on workshops. He'll do like week-long workshops with students and like teach them to make student films and stuff. Some of his movies are the best movies I've ever seen. But like, I just picked him because his outward appearance is so fucking boring.
Yeah.
And that I think if you're trying to get somebody, say you like,
he's like 82 years old.
Yeah. But imagine like you pick a girl up from the bar and you're trying to fucking get her into watching Werner Herzog. No, it's not gonna work. That's never gonna fucking work.
That's not a first. That's not a first night hanging out together.
But like, if your girlfriend of like a long time that you're like, oh, dude, you should really fucking check this guy out.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like after a 10-minute conversation, it's like, oh, this guy's fucking amazing.
Yeah, the first time hanging out with a girl, if you put on anything Werner Herzog, that's a good way to be like, I was feeling like doing stuff, but
here's
now
the
I just feel kind of weird.
What you do is you put on The Mandalorian, and you get a little busy for the first couple episodes until you get a good Herzog, and you're like, oh, you know that guy? And she's like, who? What? That one's like, oh yeah, this guy. He made this great movie, Fitzcarraldo, and then you pop that in.
Oh no.
She's like, is he in this movie? No, he directed it. We gotta watch. No, keep stroking me though.
Oh my god, Jesus Christ. Well, is that Werner? Are we done with him?
He's still alive, man. He's still kicking. I was
82.
Thought that it would be a good foil for these bombastic, insane characters with their fucking big profiles to go up against like a much more mellow character that's far more interesting.
Yes, I wonder what his kids are like.
That's actually that is kind of fun because let me pull up this real quick. Okay, so he's got 3 children.
Yeah.
Hannah Matters, Rudolph Herzog, and Simon Herzog.
Uh-huh.
Just incidentally, when I was looking at this earlier, I pulled up Simon Herzog's Instagram. Because he's a good looking boy. He kind of looks like Adam Driver, you know?
Okay.
Simon is I believe a visual artist and consultant.
Okay.
He has some pictures from his trip to the discovery site of Otzi, the Iceman, who you might know as the earliest murder victim.
What?
So this guy took a hiking trip to the fucking, I believe it's, the Europe's oldest natural mummy and murder victim, Otzi the Iceman, hiked like 3,000 feet or something to get to the site where they discovered his body.
Yeah, because they've got evidence that forensic evidence that his head was bashed in.
That's what Herzog's kids are like. Herzog's kids take trips to see the shit like that, which is fucking cool. But like, I mean,
but this wasn't till a film or anything. This was
just as a vacation. He's like, I've always wanted to go, so I did. And now, like, I want to. Like, that sounds great. Like, I'm all about that shit.
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. As I look upon Otzi,
at least with one of his kids.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think is that.
Epilogue.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. We needed to do something that was not anywhere in the American West, and and just was kind of
fun.
Yeah, fun.
We just wanted to bullshit a little bit and have fun.
This is what we call an episode for us because, God, sometimes we just have to do that. But if you liked the show, please get on whatever you're listening to, whatever streaming service you're on. Give us 5 stars. Leave us a review if you can leave us a review. You don't have to say anything super nice about us if you don't want to. You can tell us what city you're from. I like the what city you're from.
Why don't you just tell us which ancient murder victim is your favorite? Do you like Otzi the Iceman, Rose Marquis Man, the Younger Lady, Thessalonic of Macedon, Roxana Mania, Lysias, Berenice Syria, or my personal favorite, 1,300-year-old murder victim unearthed in China?
1,300? That doesn't seem like that long ago.
I know, it's old though.
Yeah, but I mean, not
it's old enough. Fucking what are you, snob?
No, I mean, it's just like how.
That's a cold case. That's a bones.
Well, as I said, if you can, give us 5 stars, leave us a review. It's I'm over here feeling like absolute dog shit. So
he's thick today. I'm glad I got to talk most of the time because he's not loving it.
I've got a lot of sneezes and coughs and stuff to edit out on this one. So.
And and ahs and just me just being a fucking madman going off in a million different directions.
Got a lot of ums and ahs. Yeah, so please give us that rate and review. Also, if you'd like to send us a message, deleteeverythingpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. We'll answer you. We'll send you something back and say, hey, thanks for reaching out. And, whatever it is that you have to say to us, we'll say something back. We also have social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. You can find us at all 3 of those, Delete Everything Podcast. And if you want to support the show, we have Patreon. We've been back on track with recording our weekly Patreon episodes.
We just did one. It's a hot tamale.
Yeah. We've got some fun ones we're about to post on there. So please, anything you guys can do, we are there for it. Oh, the Patreon is patreon.com/deleteeverythingpodcast. That's where you find us there. So without further ado, we hope to see you again next week. Thank you so much, and bye.
Afterward, one man, desperately clinging to a flimsy feeling of importance while ignoring the harm his freewheeling, consequence-free life was having on the innocent. One, devoid of purpose, filling his internal void with excess, drugs, sex, and violence, paranoid and terrified of having an otherwise meaningless life snatched from him. And a third, convinced of his own irrelevance, confident in the futile nature of his existence, while still practicing incredible amounts of control and discipline in life. All 3 boring in their own ways, All three lived insane lives of adventure. How do they come together? What does it mean? In the grand scheme, it means nothing. Their lives and deaths but a passing mirage in the desert of reality. Even this podcast has meant nothing. The world would not blink if we were to delete everything.